walked. There were taxis in the town for you to go between places. Like some people live really far up hills, so it was like you need to take a taxi. But the only time I would ever get in a car was if something was like there were the next town. They was always really far apart because there were mountains between them. So you would get in a taxi and ride like 45 minutes or so to the next town. But other than that, I just walked.
What was your favorite restaurant and why?
Probably the cafe. Probably the tortas I mentioned at the beginning. Those are some of the best things I've ever eaten. They also, I love the way they do cheeseburgers in Mexico because they like try to replicate it and then they just like threw in like other stuff on top because they were bored. It was like, I want a cheeseburger, so it's like burger, cheese, lettuce, tomato, onion, like pickle, ketchup, and then they got bored, so they were like ham, pineapple, cucumber, jalapeno, and you were just like, there's like 10 things on this, but it's just how they served it. They would like smush it flat, and it was really good. But yeah.
How do you think your experiences on this trip will affect how you share the gospel here in Auburn?
All right, that's great. So the question is, how do you think your experiences on this trip are going to affect the way you share the gospel here?
I think it's kind of really just opened to my eyes to how many, like everyone needs this. I kind of used to be within my comfort zone. Like I would be like, okay, that guy looks a little weird. I'm a little weird. I can probably tell the gospel to him on like the same wavelength and it would be fine. But I told or witnessed people tell the gospel to such a wide range of people. Like the amount of different and crazy like things that I was a part of that like I just was, I don't even, the amount of drunk people that I witnessed who all of a sudden were like it seemed like they sobered. Like it felt like God working and like we would be like, are you passionate about the gospel? Or like, have you heard the gospel before? And all of a sudden, any like sign of them being drunk dropped. And they were like, we want to hear about this. We're serious about this. Like we encountered two guys on like a corner by like a little store where you could buy like beer. And they were drinking and they were plenty drunk. And all of a sudden, we talked to this guy and we're like, yeah, we're missionaries here. And that hit him so hard that he was like, come to my house right now. And we followed him and he just started like weeping, pouring out all this stuff. He was like, I've been on a 7-day bender. I know I have wrong things in my life. I know I need to change. And that was like, I was like, gosh, I didn't, like, I was just, we were just prayer walking. Like I was like in like a half an hour in. I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this and then go home and eat lunch. That was my thought process. But God decided I needed to spend the next 2 hours of my life listening to this guy's story and then proceeding to like watch my friend tell him the gospel. So I think just being more open to who needs the gospel.
You mentioned that there was a Catholic church and Jehovah's Witnesses. Were there any other Christian churches there? I mean, were they well attended? You sound like everybody you talked to was really hungry to hear the word, but you know there was these other churches there. I feel like they weren't going out witnessing, or you know that maybe they were not well attended.
It's a good question. So the Catholic Church, Jehovah's Witnesses Church in the slideshow, but what about other churches as far as evangelical Christian churches? Were there others in the area? Were they well attended?
So mainly it was just the Catholic Church, Jehovah's Witness. But the reason people were so hungry for the word when we would tell them about what was in the Bible was because they go to Catholic church, but they don't read the Bible. They just would attend like mass on Sunday and then they just kind of trust what the preacher's saying and go home. And so then we sat down with people and we were telling like, you were saved by grace through faith. And we're telling them these like fundamental things about Christianity. And they're like, I didn't know this was a part of it. This is so cool. I thought this was just like something I was obligated to do on Sunday. Like this is like, so people were really on fire for it because they were finally understanding what it meant to be a Christian. Like they were sitting there fully getting it and they were like, this is awesome. I want to hear more about this like what is in the Bible, not just going to church, like going through the motions of doing that.
You said you like witnessed to the drunk guy and all. Did you ever like run into anybody that, you know, rejected you or threatened you or, you know, like I know the cartel had to be around somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything like that that you came upon?
All right, so yeah, a couple of things there. Do you have anybody in sharing the gospel that rejected you and the message? And then also, with that, but could be also different, any overall like safety concerns that you had?
In general, for safety concerns, the only time we were worried about the cartel is when we were traveling. So in this town, there was no real presence of the cartel. I could walk around on my own safely at any time and be okay. But traveling from Mexico City down to Alcazalca, that was like, don't get out of the car unless we tell you to, just to be safe, because we're like nervous about all this stuff happening. The sad thing wasn't, I didn't get really rejected. I got like really good reception because it was this crazy thing that I was white. So I'm like talking to people and they're like, this is revolutionary, you're American. And then I had my friend Ethan, whose parents were from a town literally like 30 minutes away, and he would try to talk to them, and he had a couple people who were drunk, and they would just be like, you're not really Mexican. They were like really getting on to him, like, what gives you the right to tell me about this gospel when you're not really Mexican? Like, you aren't living the life I'm living. Like, you don't have the credit to tell me this stuff. And that was like, I didn't understand it at the time because I didn't speak Spanish, but we walked away and he looked like hurt. Like, he was like, I can't believe this is what's happening to me. I thought I would get I thought people would be against me for the word, not for who I am. And it was just awful to see that happen to him. But that was mainly what we got.
Anybody else? All right, I'll give you the last question. So you were there for a few weeks. How often did you go prayer walking?
We had a Sabbath, an off day, and then we prayer walked 5 out of 7 days of the week. So it was like Sunday was you had the service that was in English, and then they would encourage you, like, don't get on your phone, don't do anything, go read the Bible on your own, or go read some kind of scriptural text and be in the Word. And that was a wonderful time. Then we had an off day for like if I need to buy food or something. And then you had 5 out of 7 days of the week, you would go out for an hour and prayer walk. And that was kind of what we would do. Sometimes we would double up, but yeah.
So multiple days every week, you went prayer walking for about an hour.
Yep.
And they had you do a virtual prayer walk before you ever arrived.
Mm-hmm.
All right, why so much emphasis on prayer walking?
Because that's how God moves. I mean, seriously, none of what we did would be possible without prayer. There was stuff that I'm like I said before, I am 20. I'm not the greatest at this because I haven't been to seminary or anything. And I'm just like, so much of what I did without knowing the language, without having the most in-depth knowledge in the world, like, it felt like I was fumbling. But God was like, nope, that's exactly what I needed. And prayer has been over this person. Bam, this person's saved. You didn't do anything. And I was like, it just was like I was witnessing so much happen solely because people were asking for intervention from God. And like coming away from this, the power of prayer is insane. Like it's beautiful just to see how much like the missionaries while we were there were like, if you don't get to tell the gospel to anyone, if you don't know any Spanish or you can't talk to anyone, you have prayed over this community for 42 hours along with your 2 friends. So that's like multiplying that by even more. And that's so much intervention, asking God for like intervention in this necessary way. And it's just like, it's so cool to see prayer moving.
Awesome. Thank you, Nathan. Y'all give Nathan a hand for coming here and sharing with us. We're grateful for that, and what an incredible time tonight, getting to hear him share. And thank you for your support, allowing Nathan to go on this trip. We've sent so many on mission in recent years, and I'm grateful for a church that's so generous in regard to that. And so prayer walking. Every missionary I've ever met, every church planter I've ever met, they all emphasize prayer walking. For some reason, in our established churches, we forget how important just a simple discipline like that can be. And so I've shared this before, and I'll say it again. It's not an accident that this church is here in this location, and in recent years, all these neighborhoods have ended up here around this church. That's not an accident. And can you imagine what we would see God do if we took time, multiple days out of the week, an hour a day. Can you imagine if we took time to go through these neighborhoods, walking these streets, and praying and asking for God to move? And so I appreciate you sharing that with us tonight. And so I'm going to give you a challenge in regard to that. Next Friday evening, the 7th of August, we have that block party in Camden Ridge. How many of you are willing to go to Camden Ridge sometime between now and then? You can park your car at Shane's house. Or you can park at the pool area and just do some prayer walking before we go out there and set up and do ministry. Walk those streets and pray and ask God to give us favor and help us to do ministry there in that neighborhood. And so the Lord honors the prayers of his people. And so thank you for being here tonight. Nathan, thank you for standing up here and sharing. That's not easy to do, to stand up here and share testimony, and we are grateful for that, grateful that you were able to have that opportunity. Thank you again for giving and for praying, and I pray that we'll continue to send those who are willing to go. And so let me close us in a word.